One, we had received the minutes. Is there any corrections or additions to be made to the minutes?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as they were presented.
I have a motion from Nancy.
Paul will second.
Paul seconds. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, minutes are accepted. Okay, we have the following companies scheduled to attend for the CF1s on the tax abatements. I think the first one on the agenda is Ralph Schwenk with Jasper Engines. Ralph, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate you guys taking the time for us here. And this is in relation, I assume you have all the paperwork you need there. We're copied on all the emails, but this is in regard to compliance with statement of benefits for tax abatement application approved for resolution number 2014-8 in regards to our 1220 Power Drive facility. And give you a quick rundown, kind of a summary in regards to the head count that we've added since that project started. We are at 156, net of 156 additional folks. Our target at the time, or projected on the SB1 was 100, so we're still above that. The 156, we're still above the 100 projection. And then in regards to the equipment assessed values, this past year, we've increased the assessed value by $722,163. So we, right now we're at assessment of additional assessment of over $3 million. And I believe our projection back in 14 was 353,000. So we're continuing to be over and above that goal there. And then in regards to real estate, it's pretty minimal compared to last year, very little change. We're at total assessed value of $1,915,679 with the projection at $1,845,000. So that's my summary.
If you guys do a good job of providing the summaries, all the documentation with that. Any questions from council?
No, I'll make a motion that they are in substantive compliance.
I have a motion from Kevin, the Jasper Engines is substantial compliance.
I'll second.
And I have a second from, who was that?
John.
John Schrader. Okay. Second from John Schrader. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph.
Jasper Engines
Good job.
continued investment.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. And thanks for getting me first in line here. Have a good evening.
Go home for dinner.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks.
Is Pete Schweigert on?
Yeah, he is.
Yes.
Okay, Pete.
Yeah.
Muted.
Pete, I think you might be muted.
I am muted. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Can.
yes, we have you.
Gotcha. Well, and I apologize. I know we technically have, I guess, two on, and should I just go over them both now, or is one up?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess I'll start with Jasper Lofts because that was the first development. I think we're now in year 3 of operations with the facility, basically running at 100% occupancy. Right now, our occupancy is at 95%. We had a few turnovers right before the COVID situation had hit, and certainly getting folks back into those units has been a little slow since. But ultimately, after some early years where we we're having some minor security issues in the internal corridors. We've addressed a lot of those issues and have not had recent issues. And families over there seem to be very happy with the amenities and the units that are available. As you probably remember, those units are all serving families making at or below 60% AMI. So working class individuals who really needed new apartments in the community. And so it's operating well. And I think now that stay-at-home orders are lifted, it will only be a matter of a couple weeks, and we'll have those handful of units that are open leased again. And then Vine Street Lofts, which was funded a year later by the state, is now been up and running for about a year and a half in operations. It was somewhat slow to lease up from what we had expected, but did get leased 100% occupancy almost a year ago, and has generally been running at that. We do have a similar situation where there are a few turns of units, and both of these buildings presented some pretty substantial challenges in conversion. I do know that I heard that there are 2 or 3 units in Vine Street where we ended up having a subsequent water issue, leakage, I believe, from the roof. So there are 3 units that are getting addressed right now, so that we can be up at 100% occupancy again there. So ultimately, there's over 130 families, seniors and young families being served in the 2 developments. And certainly it's a lot of new investment. We're excited to be there, and certainly also looking for ways we can do more as time permits. Certainly happy to answer any questions you might have about our document submitted, if there are any.
Pete, this is Nancy Eckerly. On the Vine Street lofts, are most of those single people living there, or are there a variety of 2 people or so living per unit?
Yeah, I would have to pull the rent roll to give you an official count. I do know that a majority of our units are single households, and I'm going to guess that's probably in the 75 to 80% range. Normally somewhere between 80 and 85% between our properties throughout the portfolio. If you would like me to, though, I can provide some additional feedback, get the rent roll and see what the actual head count is.
That's okay. I was just curious to see if, since it's senior housing, it seems like most of it would be single occupancy.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more like 90% singles.
Pete, this is Kevin Manley. What you mentioned 60%, the rent is 60%, you said AMI? What is that number?
So it would really depend on the size of your household. So 60% AMI means basically 60% of households within the county would meet that income definition. And so it's based on the county. Jasper County generally has a pretty high AMI when compared to other counties in the state. And so depending on the size of your household, we really can target incomes up of somewhere in the mid 60s, I'm guessing. And as we're talking, I can pull up on the web and see if I can't even find that exact number, but it's roughly households up to around 63 to 65,000 that we can accommodate.
Okay.
There's a big bandwidth around 1,200 households in Jasper and the surrounding area that kind of meet the definition. It's really working class households that are, jobs paying anywhere from $17 to $27 an hour, really fit the bandwidth.
Okay, thank you.
Our mix out there is very diverse. We have 1s, 2s, 3s, and I believe even a few 4-bedroom units. So it's a very diverse mix, so we can serve a lot of household sizes and types as well.
Pete, do you have a waiting list?
At points we've had small waiting lists. Right now, I don't believe, maybe within a unit type there might be a waiting list in Jasper. But with with the turn of some of these units, we had a few turns, and then with COVID, that's really slowed things down a little bit. So we're generally running, 100% occupancy, but by the time you might have to deal with turns in the with that, you're really running about a 97% occupancy.
Yeah. Well, I think it's proven that this housing need has been out there for a while, and it's nice to see your occupancy rates as high as they are. That is just reinforcement that our housing requirements here in Dubois County and Jasper are such. So,
Mayor, I'll make a motion that that they are within substantial compliance.
I have a motion from Kevin, and this is regarding both the Jasper lofts and Vine Street lofts. Correct,
Yes.
Kevin?
Yes.
I have a motion from
That
Kevin,
motion.
and that was Nancy for a
Yes.
second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
Thanks for your time today. Appreciate everybody.
thank you, Pete.
Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks,
For
Pete.
catching up.
The next one is Park Place with Ruger Kirsteins.
All right, Park Place, phase one. It's phase one of maybe 4 different phases. It was 30 units, 1 community building. We had an estimated cost going in at 2.8. We came in right at 2.8 on cost. The assessed value that we got on our Form 11 this year was 1.7 million, roughly. We are 100% occupied, and we had those pre-leased before they were completed, and that's what sparked up our interest to go ahead and build phase 2 right away. And I will get to phase 2 later during this meeting, but to keep it to phase 1 only, nothing really deviated from the SB1 that I had submitted prior to the project.
Ruger, when you have on there project nearing completion, you're talking about the total project with all of the phases, or is that just phase 1 nearing completion?
That was phase 1 nearing completion. The last building, we struggled to get the appliances in because of the backlog on the logistics with the company. It took an extra 3 weeks to come in.
Okay.
But they're all completed now and rented, so everybody moved in.
Oh, yeah, I see the date on that was the end of April. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion regarding Park Place?
Mayor,
I'll
I'll
make
make that
Go
motion.
ahead, Paul.
I have a motion from Paul
I'll second.
and a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Good. Well, Ruger, you're still on deck. We're gonna have the Park Place hearing. And that was published in the Herald, May 9th of 2020. And we're looking at a Park Place Estates confirmatory resolution. This is resolution number 2020-2. It's a resolution. I guess I'd like you to go ahead and do the overview of it, if you would,
Sure.
before we go into the resolution. So,
Okay. Earlier I sent out an attachment, a PDF of a short PowerPoint presentation. I'm just going to follow along through that. So Park Place Estates, everybody's familiar with project. We've stuck to all of the same kind of general terms and guidelines as when we first started building. Brief overview, total project is 148 units. Phase 1 was 30 units in the community room. Phase 2, we're looking at bringing 44 units. They're all market rate apartments. Oh, great. There we go. I don't have to look side to side. The project site right behind Nancy Bear, corner of 30th Street and 231. And Renee, I'm on slide 4. Yeah. So if you can see Phase 2 is going to be the two coming in on the cul-de-sac on the bottom of the slide, take a right into the parking lot. It's the first two long buildings on the west side of the property. And then 4 of the square ones in the middle will be phase 2, the 44 units. The square buildings are 8 units per building, and the long ones in the hillside there are 6 units per building. Go to the next slide. Again, 6 buildings. They're all 2-bedroom units. We have found that these have been the most in demand when renting out phase 1. And the total investment that we have going into phase 2 is $3.7 million. We support local. As always, we'll continue to use our local suppliers and contractors on this project and the remainder of the project. The construction materials, everything's going to remain similar to phase 1. All the appliances are Energy Star certified, LED light fixtures, water efficient toilets, and hydroponic heat systems throughout. So the hot water and the heat in the facilities are all controlled by water boiling systems. And we have found that all of the energy efficient utilities that we installed, the average utility bills are significantly lower, which is great. All the residents are really enjoying that out here right now. Next slide, 32nd Street. That just shows the exhibit of the extension into the park. We're expecting this surface coat to come on anytime whenever CalCar's got time on their schedule. I know they're busy on 231 right now, but they've got it on their agenda to come out here and put the surface coat on it. Utilities, I don't want to sound too redundant. Everything is the same as phase 1. All the utilities are already brought into the park. We're simply just extending on to the utilities that were installed in phase 1. It's all ran off of private water and sewer, and it's public gas and electric. So phase 1 highlights. I didn't realize that whenever I made this presentation, I'd be presenting the CF1 compliance form at the same time. But here are some general highlights of phase 1 and where we're at. It's 100% occupied. The 1-bedrooms are renting at $575, and the 2-bedroom townhomes are at $725. There's a community fitness center, basketball court, and shelter house. The shelter house just got built. The basketball court's coming in, and we're working on getting equipment in the fitness center right now. And I had a few questions from people asking about if we had a lot of our own residents moving into Park Place. We only had 2 of our existing residents move to Park Place, and the rest came from various locations, few from out of town, but mainly people from within Du Bois County relocating to a new facility. Next slide's a rendering phase 1. Obviously, it's not that green yet. We're working on growing the grass right now, but it's getting there. And but the building layouts and design is shown here on the rendering. Next slide is a rendering of the front of the buildings, representing the townhome units on the you call it uphill. I don't know, looking at down below is the 1-bedrooms you enter in. You can kind of see it on the next picture I've shown. On the back side of the buildings below the decks is where the 1-bedrooms walk into the basement, essentially is what it is. But this is an overview of the entire site, and where the land is vacant to the south, just south of the community room, is where the next buildings are going to be built. You can kind of visualize it off of this photo here. Next slide is an interior of the townhome unit. The 1-bedrooms are pretty similar. The kitchens are just a tad smaller, but all the finishes are the exact same. Went with solid surface top, solid cabinet doors, and Whirlpool appliances. Next slide shows the bathroom. The next one is the living room. And the next slide is just another shot of the living room. And then that ends the presentation for Park Place Phase 2. I can answer any questions. I kind of sped through that, but I know you guys have all heard this presentation twice now, and it probably sounds close to the same, but Phase 2 is essentially 44 more units with the same finishes as Phase 1. We're just extending onto the project.
Hey, Ruger, it's Kevin Manley. You had mentioned you're using local contractors and suppliers. Who are some of those, just for sake of knowing who you're working with?
Well, Kirstein's Custom Builders is a general contractor on the site.
Oh, okay.
Schrering's, TNT Roofing, Brosmer's is the engineers. Every single one of all the way down to the last piece is all local.
Okay.
Where do
Yeah.
you get your appliances? Ruger, this is Dave Hurst. Where do you get your appliances from?
Ferguson's.
Ferguson's, okay.
And with that, Ruger, don't you have some kind of safety features that are a little unique to these apartments?
Yeah, so the stoves, to eliminate some of the kitchen fires and stuff like that on the burners, on the coils, they actually have a sensor that if the coil is pushed down for more than, I can't remember how long it was, but it's 30 minutes or 45 minutes, the burner automatically shuts off. So if you put eggs in the frying pan and then leave for work and forget it's on, you won't come home to a burned up apartment later on. Shuts off for you.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Ruger,
Ruger, you had, originally on the Phase 1, you had some 1-bedrooms. Now you've gone to all 2-bedrooms. Did that alter the design of your buildings at all?
So Phase 1, there's 12 one-bedrooms, and those all leased up fine. Per the design that we had on the master plan, the 2 bedrooms were always laid out up on top of the hill, continuing on, and it worked out great because whenever I said our two bedrooms were in demand more, kind of made us excited for the next phase coming in, given they were all 2 bedrooms. So.
Mhm. And then I have another question. That tree line, which is kind of a buffer between the neighbors, are you trying to make sure that you pretty well keep those trees that are between your property? And maybe they're all on your property. I really don't know where the property line is there, but trying to keep that buffer between the houses.
Yeah, per the PUD, there's a large buffer in there. I think it's 100 feet, and those trees are going to remain unencumbered. So it'll be a nice break in between the neighbor's house and the new apartments.
Okay.
Ruger, Paul, Laura here. Have you guys got several of these spoken for already yet too? Are people excited on the list to jump into Phase 2, I hope?
Yeah, so we've gotten several calls trying to get into Park Place, and we said we were full. But we got Phase 2 coming in, and they asked when, and we said, well, fortunately, we won't be starting until hopefully the fall, and they'll be delivered next spring again. And some of them said they were going to hold out until they're finished and move in. So we've got some eager people, especially ones that are on our waiting list right now to get into our other units. They keep asking, waiting, and fortunately, it's going to be a little while till they get in there. But we've got demand, coming in for Phase 2.
Well, that answered my second question. There's a timeline until Phase 2 would be up and live and running. So, nope. Again, I've said it before. It's great. I love seeing these long range projects come to fruition, and seems to me you guys are doing a great job out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Ruger? If not, I would like to move forward with 2020-2 and ask for a motion. Yes.
We need to see if there's anybody from the public that wants to comment.
Oh, okay. I didn't have that on here, so, it is public hearing. I would open up the meeting to anyone in public that would like to make comment on this, ask a question. Hearing nothing and not seeing any chat requests.
I
I'll
would
take a
go ahead
motion.
and close the public hearing there.
Motion to close the public hearing by Paul.
I'll second that motion.
I have a second by Nancy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, Renee, for pulling that in there.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now I will ask for a motion to consider resolution 2020-2 for one reading only.
I will make that motion.
I have a motion from Tad.
Second, Paul.
I have a second from Paul. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Could I have the motion read in full or by title only?
I'll make a motion to read by title only.
Title only by Nancy,
I'll second.
second by Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read resolution 2020-2 by title only?
Resolution number 2020-2, a resolution of the Common Council confirming the designation of a portion of the city of Jasper as an economic revitalization area and approving a statement of benefits. Park Place Estates 1 LLC.
I would entertain a motion to pass and adopt resolution 2020-2.
This is Kevin. Go ahead, Paul.
I will go ahead and make a motion to adopt and pass the resolution for Park Place 2.
Okay, I have a motion from Paul.
That's Kevin. I'll second it.
I have a second from Kevin. Any further discussion on this?
I don't have anything to add, except that, Alan, if you would take a roll call vote, please.
Yeah, we would have to have a roll call on this one. So at this point, Alan, you want to do the roll call?
Yes. John Schrader,
Yes.
Chad Leakin,
I vote aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. And the resolution 2020-2 has passed.
Whatever we get phase 2 along, we got a unit to show. I'll set up another tour similar to one that we did on phase 1 as well.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank you,
good.
Ruger.
Thank you.
Good job, Ruger.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next thing is a public hearing for gas rates adjustment. And that was published in the Herald, May 8th, 2020. At this time, I'd like to open the public hearing. Any comments? Questions?
But I invited Kerry Hyde. He is our consultant who did the cost of service and rate design. He handed out or he sent me, and I sent, I think Alan sent to you guys, kind of a short summary of this study with some documentation to support the rate changes. Overall, the revenue requirements, the existing rates were enough to meet our revenue requirements and kind of the revenue requirement part of the study. But through the cost of service study, we decided to change the structure of the rates a little bit. It didn't change the revenue requirements, and it really didn't change the utility bills for our customers that much. And I'll pass it on to Kerry and let him kind of go through those documents a little bit to explain. I think the first ones show the existing rates and the new rates. So go ahead, Kerry.
Okay, well, probably the first document to look at would be, it's entitled Schedule 1, page 5 of 5. It's the second to last page in the handout. And the thing to notice there is that the total revenues at present rates is the same as the revenues at proposed rates. If you look, thank you, at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that the total rate increase was $119, and that's on an annual basis. The increase percentage is 0.01%. Actually, those small amounts are simply due to rounding because we could not carry the rates out to more than the 4 digits. So we do have a little bit of rounding from what we actually needed to generate compared with what we actually generated. So that is the only reason that those numbers do not read 0. If we would now page back to the second page, in other words, the first page following the title page, and all of these pages, with the exception of the last page, are all set up identically. And what this is showing, I'm sorry, are there questions? Okay. If you look at the columns, yes. Okay, I keep hearing like somebody's asking a question. If you look at column 6, or let me see. No, I'm sorry, column 4. Those are the current present rates. And the way the rates are currently established is that you have the purchased gas cost that is simply a flow through that is included in the present rates. So you see for the residential rate, the rate including the gas cost of $7.78. But of that, $6.42 roughly is gas cost. And so what is actually left for the utility to use for its own operating and maintenance and other needs is the $1.36. Those are at present rates. We're proposing for a variety of purposes to increase the customer charge. The reason for doing that is to provide revenue stability to the utility so that the utility is not so dependent on the level of usage. And the other significant change that we're making is that whereas previously the gas cost, the $6.42 that I was referring to earlier, that was included in the base rates, we are now removing that gas cost from base rates so that your base rates will include only what is referred to as margin. In other words, the total revenue other than the pass-through of gas cost. That's probably the most significant and visible change it really doesn't have any impact on the customer bill, but it simply makes it easier for the customer to understand. And particularly when gas prices are increasing, the customers are inclined to blame the increase in the total bill on the utility. And so this will help to identify and clarify that only roughly a dollar of the $7 or $8 charge is related to the utilities operation, and the rest of it is simply purchased gas costs beyond the control of the utility for all intents and purposes. So those are really the most significant changes. We did do a little bit of tweaking, and we changed the way that we established the outside rate. When we removed the gas cost from the base rate, that did have an impact on the way that the outside rate was calculated. And so that did have some impact on the final rates that were assessed and developed for the outside customers. And then the effect, and I don't know if you can see that on my screen, at least, the right-hand column is covered up with pictures, but the effect is that there will be a very slight increase in the inside rate, and there will be a decrease in most of the outside city rates. But those really, dollar-wise, are not a significant amount. But that is probably the most notable thing that you will see in these exhibits. If you turn to the very final page, which is the bill impact table for residential customers, you will see that the because we increased the customer charge from $10 a month to $12 a month, that had the effect of us needing to actually decrease the volumetric charge, and that removes some of the volatility in the customer bill revenue for the utility. As a result, what you see on this table is that there will be a slight increase in usage, or in the bill for customers that don't use much usage. And then as they increase the amount of usage, they will actually see decreases in their bill. But keep in mind that this is a bill impact table, and customers over the year have varying usage, so that the total overall impact to customers is slightly less than 2% per year. And that does not include the effect of gas cost. And so when you include the effect of gas cost, the actual impact on residential customers inside the city will be probably in certainly less than 1% and probably more in the neighborhood of somewhere between 0.5% and 1%. So really, we did a little bit of cleanup and fixing of rates that we knew existed, and that is going to create some of these showings of increases and decreases. And that is going to be really a one-time occurrence. In other words, the next time you change your rates, you won't have this same phenomenon going on. So it was a one-time cleanup, and it was a good time to do it because we found out early in the process that the utility did not need to increase the total amount of revenue. And so when you don't have to increase revenue, that gives you the ability to make some of these rate design changes without having significant impacts on the other customers. So that's just a very quick overview. There, behind these exhibits, there is a study by London Witty that shows the development of the revenue requirement and the fact that you do not need any increase in revenue. And then I prepared a lengthy cost to service and rate design study that developed rates. So this is really just kind of the tip of the iceberg as far as the documentation that went into the development of these rates.
Hey, this is Kevin Manley. I have a question for Bud. Actually, what about our capital expenditures, like for the next 5 years? Are those in your cost of service rates, or where do those fall in our rate structure?
They'll fall in both. They are included in the revenue requirements. We look at that when we determine, how much revenue we're going to need in the future. And based on that, they determine that our revenue would cut kind of our capital expenditures in previous years reflects similarly to what we expect to have in the future years. So that means our existing rates that cover those expenses will also cover our future expenses. So
okay,
yes,
and that's built in the rates?
Yes.
Okay, that's what my only question. I couldn't figure out from this where that would fall.
Now that was part of the part that London Witty did to begin with.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Bud.
Again, this is a public comment, public hearing on the gas rates. Is there any other comments? Questions?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
my own. Okay. I just went ahead and pulled my utility bill that just came today. And so it shows, this is probably a Bud question, but gas customer charge, it shows the $10. And then my bill was $31.12, and then I got a $13.20 discount. What does that relate to the common person then that gets a utility bill like this?
Well, in the summertime, because it's going up to, like, my summer bills have 0 usage. So
Okay.
instead of paying $10 like I normally would, it'll be $12.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yeah.
the fuel part, the second part, it should be about, will actually be a little bit less. So your $10 will be $12, but your fuel costs will be a little less. So that'll, it should balance out to be almost the same thing.
Okay. I mean, that's kind of relationship to this last page, you know, where you fall on current margin bill, I guess is what I was kind of relating to.
Yeah, you kind of want to look at it too. Is you think, okay, we're going to raise that customer charge. So maybe lower income people will see, those higher rates in the summertime. But,
Yeah.
and if they're low usage people, they may see higher all annual rate. But typically, the people with lower income live in houses that aren't as efficient and use more fuel in the winter time. So they're actually going to probably come out better, than if they're because of the less efficient houses using more fuel than what they've done in the past. So from that standpoint, it looks like it's good for our customers.
Very good.
Any other questions? Dave, I think you're trying to speak. You're on mute. There you go.
Okay, but I was just curious, have you heard anything from the public about the increase or anything?
Well, we've basically said it's not going to be an increase on an annual basis. It's going to be mostly about the same. So
Okay.
I think everybody's happy with that. Luckily, the price of gas too has been really low, and our gas supplier thinks that that's going to be maintained probably for the next year. So
Okay.
everybody will benefit from the lower gas prices.
I haven't heard anybody say anything about it, so I'm just kind of curious if they're hearing anything or not there.
No, I haven't heard anything negative.
Sounds good.
If I haven't received any chat requests for comment or questions, Renee, have you?
No. Mm-mm.
If not, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. John Schrader.
John Schrader, okay.
Seconded by Paul Lori.
Paul Lori, second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So we have the second and third reading for the gas ordinance number 2020-9, which is an ordinance fixing a schedule of revised rates and charges for the sale of natural gas, Jasper Municipal Gas Utility.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2020-9.
Before we do you want that in full or title only, Kevin?
In title only.
All right. So Kevin's got a motion for title only. I'll start with that, okay?
Yep.
And do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Second from Phil. Did I hear that?
Sure. That's good.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. So.
So now I'll need to read it right now for second reading, and then you can vote on that, and then we'll go through the same process for third reading.
Okay.
So for second reading, ordinance number 2020-9, an ordinance fixing a schedule of revised rates and charges for the sale of natural gas by the Jasper Municipal Gas Utility, amending ordinance number 2011-7.
But I have a motion to approve the ordinance on its second reading.
I'll
So
make that
moved.
motion, Nancy.
Got a motion from Nancy,
I will second.
and that was Chad.
Chad.
Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor, I guess we need a vote. We need a
That's
roll
correct.
call vote.
Yes.
We'll need a roll call vote on this, Alan.
Okay. John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. The second reading passes. Now, could I have a motion to read the ordinance on its third and final reading in full or by title only?
I'll make that motion to read for a third time by title only. Nancy.
I have a motion from Nancy.
I will second. Paul?
Paul seconds. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed to that? All right, would the attorney please read the ordinance?
Ordinance number 2020-9, an ordinance fixing a schedule of revised rates and charges for the sale of natural gas by the Jasper Municipal Gas Utility, amending ordinance number 2011-7.
Could I have a motion to approve the ordinance on its third and final reading?
John Schrader will make that motion.
John Schrader,
I'll second that, Kevin.
Kevin Manley second. Any further discussion? Okay, could I have a roll call vote, please? Alan?
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Twenty 20-9 has passed. Next item is revised rates for sewer. And it's ordinance number 2020-11. Could I ask for a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave.
I'll second Phil.
I have a second from Phil. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Could I ask for a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I would make a motion to go ahead and read by title only.
I have a motion.
Paul?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Would the city attorney please read ordinance 2020-11 by title only?
Yes, I do have one question before I read it. Because one reading only procedure has to be approved unanimously, I need to make sure that no one is abstained from that vote.
Okay, yeah, I had well, that's true. It wasn't a roll call vote. Was there anyone that abstained from the vote? Okay,
Okay, great.
thank you.
Ordinance number 2020-11, an ordinance fixing a schedule of revised rates and charges collected by the city of Jasper, Indiana, from the owners of property served by the sewage works of said city and other matters connected therewith. Amending ordinance number 2008-10 and all amendments thereto, and repealing ordinance number 2010-27 and 2012-18.
Okay, can I ask for a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-11?
This is Dave. I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave,
John Schrader, a second.
second from John. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. We have a roll call vote, please.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay. 2020-11 passes.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes,
Is it okay if I allow Kerry to excuse himself if he'd like to? I don't know if you need to sit through the rest of this.
of course.
I should have
Thank you,
done that
Gary.
earlier.
Appreciate your explanation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
Thank
work.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and next thing on the agenda then is Green Meadows ordinance, rezoning. So ordinance number 2020-12.
Mayor, can I,
Yes,
it's actually Brookstone 7.
all right. And I knew that after sitting through that last night. So rezone Brookstone 7. And it still is 2020-12.
Then how does that relate to the Green Meadows? Is it the same thing?
No, Green Meadows is the neighboring subdivision to the north.
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay.
Brad,
Okay.
do you want me to share my screen? Or are you taking care of that?
Yeah, if I can share mine, that'd be great.
Okay.
So, yeah. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Brad Eckerly, Brosper Land Surveying and Engineering, here on behalf of the owner, KKB LLC, and the petitioner, Kirstein's Development, with coming to you live on video conference, right? I do have Al Maringer with Kirstein's Development in my office here as well tonight. So I'm going to share a screen just for your reference. This rezone, we had a plan commission public hearing last night. The request is in regard to the existing A1 agricultural general being rezoned to an R1 low density residential. So did obtain a favorable recommendation, was passed to the council, but just want to provide you with some of the technical components, mostly on the rezone, but just hit items that were discussed with the hearing last night. So for your reference, in regard to the area, this is located on the west side, at the west end of the corporation limits of the city of Jasper. Part of this process, within our project schedule, there would be an annexation petition filed with that, but we have approximately the 27 acres of discussion, and in reference to what Renee had filled in on, Green Meadows first edition and Green Meadows 6th edition border on the north, Brookstone Estates 6 borders to the east, and Brookstone Estates 5 borders to the south. County Road 490 is here to the west, with Ag Zone then at this location. So here is our application here. Here's a map of the existing zoning. The darker green that you see is reflective of the A1, and the lighter is in regard to RR, rural residential. So the red outline is the subject track discussing. What you see here is an aerial outline with the components for the proposed subdivision. With consider this process with the rezone, then being the first step, leading up then for primary plat process and proceeding forward. So with this, there is a connectivity of Cypress Drive, which is here to the north. That would connect Brookstone 6 over to the west to County Road 490. There would be a connection of Halen Drive here to the north. Halen was part of a, I think 1995 is when Green Meadows was platted here to the north. And then there is a cul-de-sac street and a combination of cul-de-sac street here. Councilman Schrader may be familiar with kind of a layout like this. So part of the discussion with the Plan Commission, I guess in regard to our Plan Commission, we did have a special meeting last night. That was originally scheduled for the May meeting, and we had some notification issues with our video conference that put us to the 19th. So just for reference and why you had the Plan Commission close here to the Common Council. Really what the discussions on that was a process going through the finding of facts. My intent is not to go through the full detail on those, but basically give you a basis for what we have, and then and certainly entertain any questions. So I'll just kind of do a quick summary with discussion items. With this development, it's a 49 lot single family home. Brookstone 7 would maintain covenants that are consistent with Brookstone 5 and 6 that are adjacent. So basically ensuring that we're getting compatibility of the new structures on that. This request of A1 to R1, on the map I showed you, there was rural residential that was present. The R1 zone, and what that does is, if I go back to the aerial here, I'm sorry. It provides for an area for storm detention located in this area. There's a very large storm detention with that, but then also the variations that we reviewed and discussed were the comparison between R1 and RR. Some of that difference is an 8,000 square foot difference in the minimum lot area, the square footage for a lot. The minimum width, R1 has 100 foot minimum width requirement, whereas RR is 115. So just a 15-foot difference. Minimum side setback, there's a 5-foot difference. It's 15 feet in RR and 10 feet in R1. And then the rear setback, there's a 5-foot difference there with 20 feet for the principal structure in R1 and 25 in RR. Accessory buildings, which typically is what we would deal with in a rear yard situation, those are both 15 feet in the R1 and RR zone. And then there was a difference on the height. So the layout, a lot of, honestly, the discussion was related to drainage, which may not, our main focus on that would be during the primary plat process, but with the 49 lot layout, this basically what it comes down to is we have a open detention basin in this facility that we can facilitate 220,000 cubic feet of volumetric storage, and that is that's a very large area that for the volume. But what we're doing is we're taking that Green Meadows to the north. There's some offsite drainage, like 40 acres, that contributes here into the detention basin, and basically we're accommodating that with this layout and providing that storage. So this exhibit here, for your reference, was that's not saying that these are the homes that are going to be constructed. Certainly this would be no different than single family subdivisions that we have, and that those are set up with the standards, restrictive covenants of a recorded plat, and then those lot owners then coordinate their desired improvements. But this was for representation with an R1 zone, really identifying the compatibility that we have with the surrounding areas. And some of those discussions were side load garages, talked about the percentages that we have in the area, and kind of mimicking that with this exhibit, but also the detached garages in those items. So I'll give you here's some more, just some different angles with it, but really just kind of displaying what we have in regard to the capabilities and options, but really conforming to that Brookstone 5 and 6, no change in those restrictive covenants. So I'm going to show you just a video here. Include some drone footage just for your reference. So really with this, this is the Brookstone area, just kind of giving reference for what we have as far as our existing conditions with that rezone, and those were discussion items to tie into that. So here's from the west. This is Brookstone 7, our rezone area, moving east. And what you come across here, that would be the east line Brookstone 6. And you can kind of see the existing development we have. And I'm not going to take credit for that music. I think maybe Ruger Kirstein's may have had something to do with that, actually. So, here is, I know I showed in a 3D, but here's just kind of with the plat that we have. This was just representative of the model homes that you saw in that rendering. But you see this area here, that is that detention facility. Part of the
Brad?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Who maintains that retention as far as mowing and maintenance on there?
Yeah, so that would be typical in what we've done with the subdivisions, and that would be the lot owners. So the lots that we have coming back, there's ownership that would basically be to the center of that. There is I'd reference as a low flow, but basically we're treating this would be an open detention basin. We would have an outfall structure at the south end that basically we're treating as a yard. And during the events, then we're detaining to the requirements that we have within the stormwater ordinance. But that would be typical that we have for our detention facilities in regards to those lot owners being responsible for that.
And then Brad, what about the houses like south of there? It says Brianna Thomas and Brenda Bushcutter. What about that water flowing toward their homes?
Yeah, so let's go this way.
I guess it's south.
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, what basically the existing conditions we're really mirroring what we have now, in that Green Meadows has a spillway, and part of what we heard from a resident, actually Miss Ware, that lives right here on lot 73. There is a detention facility associated with the non-corporation limits of Green Meadows in this area, but what we've seen on our calculations is that's between a 10-year and a 25-year event that's detaining, whereas our stormwater ordinance is requiring us for a 50-year to detain. But they are getting water to where we would outlet here, facilitate that through our basin coming south. And then for the residents of Pebble, along Pebble of Brookstone 5, that's where our control structure, whereas now it comes east and really gets into Miss Bushcutter's yard based on the low point being here. We're modifying that, moving it to the lot line with our control structure, and then outletting through the infrastructure that we have there. So there would be a modification and grading within Miss Bushcutter's lawn within her yard. We didn't detail, like I told Miss Bushcutter last night, I mean, I've got grading shown up near her patio. We're certainly not going to do that without coordinating for her. So part of the process was with the rezone process, getting to that, then getting to the primary plat guts would be coordinating and meeting to really identify what we can put our improvements and get and fill what the existing drainage pattern is, and not in a severe way impact her lot. But if she has a desire to do more, based on grades, that's what we'd still need to be coordinating. So
That was a lot of the discussion last night. Nancy and the rest of the board, Mayor was on the call with us, Renee. We had, I felt like two main sticking points last night when we recommended for the favorable rezone on this. One, and first and foremost, was the water. Getting the water away from Green Meadows, coming down in there, getting out on a Pebble Drive where we've had some cars actually total out, and through the neighbors driving during some of these heavy storms that we've had in there. And looking at this, having not being a water engineer myself, but having been on the plan commission long enough now and seen several of these, and to what we're able to do, or what these guys are able to do as far as helping to mitigate some of the existing water conditions by stopping the flow or slowing the flow upstream before it all runs down in there. Feeling like, looking at this, that what they're discussing putting in should help to slow a lot of that flow that's just sheeting off the top of a tilled farm field right now. You know, that field's going to soak up so much, but there's no vegetation to slow it. It's just running through and running off and taking incredible amounts of silt with it. And then the other,
in the area where those couple of cars were totaled out, would this help that wouldn't happen again?
It'll help, but it's not going to fix it on its own. We talked about it last night too. There's a separate storm surge or separate storm sewer area over there that is being overwhelmed at points in a swale in the road. Bradley, is that correct?
Yeah.
The swales there to help kind of catch that, but some of the neighbors were reporting and sending pictures last night that, you know, we all know how big a brick mailbox is that they're building here in Jasper that comes up, and that the brick mailboxes are almost underwater.
Wow.
Swale. So it's definitely an issue we need to look at and address. And I told them last night that I would make sure and bring it up tonight at this meeting, and to let them know that their voices are being heard. We're not ignoring it. You know, yes, it's putting a lot of houses in an area, and it's not that many more houses than from my research, what I did on the plan commission. I just went to the GIS and I cut out that same 24-acre section we had and moved it straight east over there, and it overlaid in. And I overlaid about 41 houses, and the new development was going to hold 49 on the little smaller lots. So, and the covenants will all be the same. You know, that was some concern they had was, well, these smaller lots are going to detract from our home valuations, and the houses are the same. You just don't have as much yard to mow. Is basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, and Nancy, with that, you know, really on the rezone, with the primary plat, it'll be the coordination with all departments and with the final drainage calculations and submittal will be the guts in regard to that. We have done all in that regard. It was just a matter for the rezone. It's not, we were a lot more in depth, you know, honestly, in regard to that. So, but just on the drainage, there are two different things. The Brookstone 7 drainage would be this purple area. That would be the limits of that. You can see to the north, this green area of Green Meadows. That's what's contributing as well. So basically, in a sense, we've got more drainage north coming through than maybe even what Brookstone 7, you know, is as well. So Brookstone 6 here to the east also contributes. So what we'll be doing is capturing some water that's on the east side of 490. We'll be capturing that within the system and bringing that to where it will not load this over here. This purple area, that is the area, there's an independent storm sewer system that comes here and outlets into the ditch. That's separate than this existing storm sewer that comes here. So there was discussion and with our TAC meeting in regard to that. But we're looking, the primary, and here where that low is in regard, that's that purple area really coming from the south, but we do get some that leak in. So we'll be taking on some of that drainage area into our system, but then we also are reviewing what we're able to do in regard to that SAG location in reference to the vehicles.
You know, through the years, all of this has always been approved, but perhaps we were a little hasty or negligent at times approving some of these things because of now the drainage is showing a really big problem. So I'm not against this. I just think that as a city, we need to be looking a little bit closer of these type of things because we're taking big acreage of farmland or nothing ag land and putting houses on it and concrete and all that. And that water has to go somewhere. And I'm not sure that we've done our due diligence in the past in making sure that this is all correct.
Yeah, I think with that being said, it's going to be the rain events. When we talk about the design events, we're taking a 10-year existing rainfall, and that's our release rate. And then we're putting on our new improvements a 50-year, and we're outletting. So when we look at a cultivated field, when you have density of the plants, you've got a lot of space in between where you have bare soil. Your drainage coefficient for that cropland is going to be about 0.6. When you get your developed lots, even with your rooftops and your asphalt, you also have that dense grass that adds in. So when you get a composite value on that, this land that we're looking at right now, that went from existing 0.6 down to 0.4. So it is to where that's correct. You get the runoff, and in the system you have to watch, but it really comes down to the events. There are certain events that we have had, we discussed it last year in Autumn Creek 3 that the council, and that's where, in regard to that, certainly that's, accounted for. Even the pebble thing, we've got the pebble sag in regard to where the vehicle flooding, that's our ordinance, our standards within that have a minimum. It's not then accounting for the bigger. So in regard to that, certainly conscious and ensuring that, on the profile, but the profile of the road, doing adjustments for that, but certainly understood in that regard. And that is part of the primary plat process.
It just really seems that the 50-year, the 10-year, those happen every year. So we can say it's a 50-year event, but it happens annually.
Yeah.
Brad, I got a question to expand on Nancy's thoughts on that. In the event of like this last year when we had those just tremendous rainstorms, and I don't know what you categorize those, were they 50, 75 to 100-year rains or whatever? If we get one of those, does this plot of land and this division here, I guess, is it going to affect the surrounding areas? And in other words, it can't handle it. And is it going to make it worse for those people?
No, I mean, Ms. Bushcutter had photos last night she shared for the area, and the detention basin that we have, the volume is greater than what is physically present today. So it's not a huge jump from what's there today, but basically we have a cultivated field that's open. And in Brenda's photos, there was times when her water came up and that outlet is on her land, and she had cobs and debris from the field, within her yard. Well, we're replacing that with grass, so she's not dealing with that. But it's a combination to where she may be seeing on the outlet structure some clogging with the cultivated field, whereas we'll be in our residential development with lawns, with houses and lawns. So this is over designed above and beyond. This is actually taking Green Meadows, Brookstone 6, Brookstone 7, and we're meeting a 50-year rain event within that basin. We're over designing way beyond in regard to that. The comparison and the discussion we had last night was, I said we had 220,000 cubic feet of storage. When I look back at 2016 for a concept of this Brookstone at that time, we had proposed in compliance with the stormwater control ordinance of 30,000 cubic feet. And basically with that concept, it was then just accounting for the overflow coming through, not detaining, but controlling that to where we're safeguarding the structures. But so this option, what this has allowed, taking a 30,000, taking that to 220,000 cubic feet of storage. So in regard to, what they see now, with Brookstone 5, for example, their houses were constructed on 5. That's when the road was built. They came in. We're providing more storage than what they have physically out there today.
And I want the council to know too, two things on there. One, very cognizant of these water issues. We talked about Autumn Creek last year. We went through and did that, or Autumn Creek 3, and had Kirstein's come through in the city. I think is helping out on that with oversizing some structures, some underground detention to help alleviate some water concerns there. We did the same thing out at Evans Brook and Trinity Crossing when they came before the Plan Commission on there, and had, again, just happened to be Kirstein's that time as well. had them oversize some detention basins and put in a holding pond. So water that flowed from Precious Blood Church and up on the highway all the way over to Klemper Road and used to come across and flood Klemper Road and roar through ditches back in there. Now I've not heard anybody talk about it getting up much over a during one of the really heavy events. It doesn't come up to their patios and into their French doors anymore in the back of their houses, from what I'm hearing in there. So we have been trying to do trying to take a proactive approach to, if we're working on something upstream or we've got a water problem upstream, how can we help and slow that and get it out and get it manageable as it works downstream? And again, so far, I don't think anybody can come back and give us any cause for complaint as to what we've done in the last 5 or 7 years when a new development's come in where we know we have a problem. We're definitely taking that into consideration. And then my other comment was, if we didn't do that, this one was the same thing in Autumn Creek that we talked about last year. On the plan side, if we didn't let it go through, then chances are nothing happens. And the water problem you have today is still your water problem tomorrow. We don't have a whole lot of stormwater funds apparently to be working on those. So anytime we can hold them to a higher standard here and they're agreeable to work with us on that, that's kind of been our go-to here the last few years.
I did not tune in to the planning commission or whichever commission it was that studied this yesterday. Were there any remonstrators there? I mean, you said Ms. Bushcutter was there, but was she a remonstrator or just I need to let you know this is my concern?
We had a lot of remonstrators at last night's meeting in there. They had a petition again, and the arguments varied from really two things. It boiled down to water and how the water was going to be handled in the neighborhood. And number two was the physical size of the lots. They did not everybody in there liked having a smaller lot with the same size house on it. They were very concerned that they were going to lose valuation on their own homes as the lot sizes got down, 8,000 square feet smaller lots than what they have in some cases. Some of these lots are still very large, some of them not quite as large. And it kind of gives you diversity of who wants to come by and what you want to build. The covenants remain the same. Al's there with Brad. He told us last night, or he sat there and said, we're talking about houses again that are going to be 49 houses that are going to be somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 homes built out there. That's a lot of revenue, and it's a lot of area to come through. But our UDO now also requires that you cannot cover any more than 35% of the lot with the permeable or non-permeable surface. So the house, the auxiliary garages and all that. And I think the closest one that you see in these renderings on here, you have to refresh my memory because we talked about a lot of numbers last night, Brad, but I think the closest one on here covers like 23% of the lot.
That's correct.
Well under the 35% limits that we would apply from the UDO. Now, one comment was made about traffic and cars again, and this is potentially 3 cars at each house, and 49, that puts another 150 cars in the neighborhood. And I go back, and that is a fact, but I go back to just 4 or 5 years ago when there was no outlet onto 490 at all. You had to sneak out to over to 400, or you went up through Green Meadows to, I'm not sure what that road is there between Daniel Brescher and the co-op in there, or you went up Hayland Drive and came out on 490. This gives 3 more access inlet outlet points to that neighborhood.
This is Mayor Bonder. There was really good dialogue last night from both sides. There was a petition that was submitted by homeowners in the area that voiced the concerns on the devaluation of their property. They had two different appraisers, property appraisers that are known in this area, that had provided statements that it would not negatively impact them because of the covenants in the neighborhoods, that it would be held to certain standards. So, I mean, I think they did a good job of addressing a lot of the issues that the homeowners brought up. Yes, there's smaller lots, but I know Randy Maringer on the commission made a comment, and I tend to agree with him. And Al Maringer also made a comment that people don't always want a big lot. They don't want that maintenance, especially as they get older. And so having the diversity and having smaller lots with nice homes on it, it kind of meets what they're hearing in the marketplace as far as demand. I don't know what is being demanded of our builders. And we're talking about a group here that is building the majority of the homes here in Du Bois County. You know, we just don't have a lot of builders out there right now. And Kirstein's is filling our housing needs. They're listening to what the demands are. I think you heard that from Ruger and earlier. I can't, make a judgment on that because I don't know the real estate market, but I know there were realtors on the call. There were these appraisers. So when you're limited in the amount of farmland, farmland just doesn't continue to develop. You want to be able to more densely use it or populate it. You don't want to just have sprawl. It's not a sustainable model over time. So I think there's a lot of arguments too, and for and against, but the way the vote went last night, there was one commission member abstained, but it was a 6-2 vote.
We had 2 people absent.
I'm sorry?
We had 2 people absent.
And there were 2 people absent.
I was
Okay.
curious as to why that one person abstained.
It was one of the property owners, the way I understand. Is that where he lives?
Yes.
One of the members in there, he lived down the street from this, so he felt like he had a vested interest, and a lot of neighbors approaching him and talking about it in advance.
Yeah.
So, and then I did have, just on a side note, I actually had a property owner that lives on Pebble Drive stop in today at my work, and his comment was, I'm not sure what the big deal is about the smaller lots. If somebody really wants a bigger lot, nothing's precluding them from buying 2 of the 0.385 acre lots and making a 0.7 acre lot, which is as big as what's behind it. So that was a comment made to me today that I quite honestly had completely looked over in my reasoning and looking at this project.
Is that actually allowable to do that?
Yeah, there'll be, the one variation may be if there's an easement, that would be over that lot. But certainly if we don't, they can be a joint, or they could go through a process to combine those lots as well.
Mm-hmm.
As a council member, I've not received any calls about this at all. I'm curious if any of the other council members have.
I have not.
I haven't.
No, I haven't. That's potentially my area, my district. I have not heard anything from that area.
And I had several that we talked last night again at full length in dialogue, and we very long meeting for having one item on the agenda last night. And again, try to listen. I want to hear everybody's concerns to come through and ask them to, not be repetitive. And we got a little repetitiveness, but it's highly charged. Everybody's emotional. They're home. Change is always difficult. So nobody disagreed, and nobody was under the assumption that this was not going to be developed.
Paul,
Go on, Phil.
I'm sorry, Phil Mundy. Paul, by the end of the discussion at the evening, do you feel most of the people were comfortable with the water situation? In other words, at the end of the discussion, that was not really an issue anymore. Is that correct?
Well, they're very concerned again that the water and the detention basin. One of them had a question about mosquitoes and other noxious odors and the likes. And we said, well, and I understand if it's not maintained properly, you can run into that in there, but shouldn't be most of the year holding water or having standing water in it if it's built properly, maintained properly on there.
Yeah, Phil, I think
concerns on the water, but I think again the proof will be in the pudding. They're going to want to see it happen here, and we had several of them say last night, well, I'm not a water engineer, I'm not a hydraulic engineer. And I said, I'm not either, but over the last 10 years I've gotten to see several of these projects come through, and a few of them to fruition that we've had really decent, really good results with. And this particular one, had we left this last night, left it in the RR setting, like Brad told you there earlier, their responsibility for maybe not this particular one, but a concept that wasn't too terribly far away from this was to hold 30,000 cubic feet of water at a 50-year event on there. And this basin that they're showing here is holding 220,000 cubic feet of water. They would have allowed Green Meadows water to just pass through the neighborhood or pass under wherever they wanted to go with nothing. This tends to help get that water in. And so those of you that aren't familiar with the area, once it crosses under Pebble Drive, it drops down into a Patoka River floodway, I believe, Brad, is the proper terminology.
Plain, but yeah.
The floodplain, okay. So floodplain, it gets down there and then drops off kind of behind the whole subdivision area, and then makes its way down to the Patoka River at the public access site, down there out Division Road. So that's a huge drainage basin for this whole area. And that water that even comes underneath this on the other side of the ridge, kind of off behind Sapphire Drive, is coming all the way from behind the high school. So.
Yeah, and Phil, part of the discussion last night, there was concern on mosquitoes in the open water, but that wouldn't be true for the dry detention that we're proposing. So maybe part of that was confusion. You know, the primary plat and the public hearing associated with that is our time to discuss. That's the time to get in and present our drainage improvements, and will be no different than the comments from Ms. Bushketter as well as Mr. Lampert up in Green Meadows and Ms. Ware. I told them I will be meeting with them so they understand, because part of it is my take on a comment from Ms. Bushketter. She doesn't want to see the water coming up and detain. It's like, well, we have to meet the stormwater ordinance. That's detaining and restricting that flow. That's part of our system and our process, you know, so they'd rather see that coming through, but that doesn't meet the stormwater ordinance. We have to, we're required to for that.
Now, Brad, on a if we have a big storm come through and that retention basin fills up or gets quite a bit of water in it, it's a dry retention, meaning that shortly after it rains and the water drains out, it will go back to being dry again. In other words, the next day after a big rainstorm, it should be, I'm not saying dry, but there won't be standing water there on a regular basis, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And one other comment was, I did speak with a realtor last night who happened to be on the call after the fact. And I had about a half-hour conversation with him last night, and I was asking him, I said, you know, what are your thoughts as far as the bigger houses on the smaller lots go? And he said, you know, he said it won't be difficult to sell. There's no question. It's a nice area. People like getting out there. And then he brought back to my attention that as you come down, let's see, I'm going to see what that is. 2nd Street off of St. Charles, over behind Precious Blood, that there were, you know, mixed use areas over there. We had smaller ranch homes and some apartments even, and condominiums up there by Precious Blood. And as you came down that hill, the houses seemed to get a little bit bigger and bigger. And as you spread side to side, the one comment he brought was Cottonwood Drive. You know, you got starter homes all the way out and through. And as you get back to cul-de-sac, there's some larger lots with some more expensive homes on there. And you've never had a problem selling a home in that neighborhood ever. I mean, they come on the market and they go and they turn and move too, like where your nephew Chad Mooney lives over in that neighborhood. So, you know, he didn't seem to think that there would be a concern as far as resale values went or a problem selling these lots, getting in there.
Paul, this is Dave. Going back to the water problem, if you know, and it all sounds good to me, but so we build all the houses and everything like that, and then we have a problem still. Who's going to be responsible for it?
Well, and that's right, Dave. And so that's where we get into, again, looking forward on this planning, is to seeing the basin, the detention basin they're going to put in now should actually, and again, I'm not an engineer by any means, but listening and doing this enough or going through these processes enough that the water actually now, we should be capturing it in curb and gutter and stormwater, putting it into the detention basin and slowing it as it moves north to south down towards Pebble, coming off of Green Meadow and down that direction. So, you know, ultimately we got to get it from the planning commission and the city council side. We got to get it right the first time, because there's no do-over once the developer's in and gone.
The only thing I don't want is to have the city have to come in and after it's all said and done, then they have to come in and fix everything and pay for everything. So that's only my concern in it there.
Sure. And again, taking that before I was even on council, that was always in the forefront of my head. So let's get it right. Let's get it done the first time, and let's mitigate as much as we can, upstream and down, to try and go through there. And again, if we do nothing, if we have no action, we haven't solved anything. It continues to be the problem that it is today.
Well,
In that retention basin, what is to stop people from planting stuff in there that we've seen in other areas, or they extend their backyard way into that retention basin, and then they or they put riprap in there or whatever they put in there, and then they complain because it's not doing the job it was intended to do.
The covenants will cover and restrict that, no different than any of our other neighborhoods.
Well, the covenants are usually good for the first owner or two. And then afterwards, nobody even knows there is a covenant.
I keep getting hit in this, and I don't know, guys. I understand, but we are getting pummeled on this. It's like somebody littering. I can't stop them. I can, people saying in the third homes like they didn't know, and yeah, they didn't know. I don't know. I mean, all we can do is record in the platted subdivision. So realtors, homeowners, the homeowner that bought, they have the ability to go to our courthouse and pull that, and they have all the information. They can do their research. Is it ignorance? And sometimes maybe, it's there is what I'm saying. Our documentation's there. In regard to the drainage, we're going above and beyond, and this plan commission is going to hear 500-year event talk. That's nowhere to be found in any of ours, but I'm discussing it. It's never been ignored. And, Chad, Herm, and I have discussed saying that the National Weather Service, they're seeing a change. They've talked about 30-year shifts here and there where we're seeing more severe rainfall, more severe drought. That may shift, but we're seeing a more frequency on 100 and 500 years.
Hello.
Our standards are at 50. So is it to where we're going to modify and change that? This is going to be over designed. We're accounting for it, and it's coming and being discussed as the procedure provides it for the ordinance with the Plan Commission with Chad Herm.
So one other comment, Nancy, with respect to a basin like that, if we get complaints, I mean, we will point them back to the covenants and show where it says that they are responsible for maintaining that.
I guess it's really up to the neighbors to kind of police that themselves.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And I would guess that if you have neighbors that have water issues now, that those water issues get a little alleviated, and then they start, for some other reason, would come back a little bit, that they're probably going to be the first ones complaining. And it would be my guess. So a little bit of a self-governance there along that line as well.
I also, I think we went through this last night, but this is a meeting regarding the zoning, changing it from ag to residential. And then as it goes through the plat meetings in the following months, that's where the details regarding the drainage and all those specifications would come out and be approved. So.
Hey, Mayor.
Yes.
Question, or not a question, but a comment. We already have flooding out there on Pebble Drive. So by building Cypress out to 490 West, wouldn't that help and give another route of access?
Who is this?
This is Alan Foy. I'm a homeowner on Cypress Drive.
Okay. Alan, you surprised me a little bit because I didn't open it up to the public, but would you mind? I will allow your question again if you would restate it.
Sure. Pebble Drive currently floods as is. My comment is Cypress Drive, if it was built west to 490 West, that would provide another route of access out of the subdivision. Because currently we get stuck in our subdivision due to the flooding at times.
Yeah, I understand that's the challenge we have out there. That's one of the things we, from a public safety standpoint, as we continue development and from a municipality, is what kind of access do we provide? Right now, they're caught between a county and a city.
Correct.
Isn't,
And that was one of
isn't
the
that
comments.
intended? Brad,
Yeah.
isn't that the intention?
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that was
no, yeah.
one
I
of the
appreciate it, and
comments.
certainly, that will. I mean, that's infrastructure that would allow that. And in regard to getting them north, there is more accessible during those large events. And like along 400 West, you run into the issues. So no, appreciate the comment to where certainly that will be an access point during those large events.
Not only Cypress, also Hayland Drive, the connection north to Green Meadow, which we talked about last night with the more traffic, more houses, more traffic, giving more outlet places or more outlets to get out and meet other infrastructure.
Okay, Brad, thank you for your presentation, and we've already had some lively discussion with this. I guess I would ask for a motion at this time to consider the ordinance for one reading only.
I'd like to make that motion, Mayor.
Motion from Chad.
I'll second. Paul?
Paul second. All in favor? Let's see, one reading only. I do have to have a roll call vote, right, Renee?
That's correct.
Okay. Alan, would you mind the roll call vote?
Sure. John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, could I have a motion to have the ordinance read in full or by title only?
I move that we read it by title only.
That was Chad?
Yes, it was.
Okay, Chad.
Paul Lori will second.
Laura, second. I'm gonna just call for a voice vote on this. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Would the city attorney please read ordinance 2020-12 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-12, an ordinance to rezone certain property within jurisdictional limits of the Planning Commission of the city of Jasper, Indiana.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-12?
This is Kevin. I'll make that motion.
I will second.
Okay, I have Kevin with the motion and Chad with the second. Any further discussion on it? If not, Alan, would you mind doing the roll call vote?
Sure. John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance number 2020-12 has passed.
This is Bud. I was wondering if I could excuse myself. I've got that long drive home.
We may need you, bud.
Thanks, council.
Hey, bud.
Bye.
Thanks, Brad.
Thanks,
Bye.
Brad.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is ordinance number 2020-13, and this is Arts Commission rates for the Cultural Center. Could I have a motion? Let's see. Oh, Kyle, if you want to go through it first, or do you want to do it during the discussion?
I'm sorry, Mayor, it was cutting out. I didn't quite catch your question.
Kyle, do you want to go through the ordinance? Anything you want to highlight or point to?
Well, what I'd like to maybe point out first would be I think there are, in addition to the cultural center rates that the Arts Commission is recommending, there are also updates to the rates at the Jasper Arts Center. Those rates have not been updated since 2010 for the most part. And so those changes mostly deal with making sure that any discounts that are applied for nonprofits are consistent. Found some from areas, depending on the room and the usage, that it wasn't consistent dropping from a private or commercial use down to a nonprofit use. So making sure that those were consistent, and then also removing some add-on items like overhead projectors or outdated equipment that quite frankly no one's using anymore, and just removing those as options. So that's part of the request. I believe it's all been rolled in and put together into one ordinance that would encompass both facilities. And then I would just add that as it pertains to the arts wing of the cultural center, that's really what we're talking about. These do not impact any of the rooms on the library side of the facility. This is just from the atrium over is what these would be dealing with. And this is after months and months of research. I've got a whole folder full of documents and research that we've collected, met with members of the community, stakeholders, reached out to other like places, both within and around the county to do what we could to make sure that we were within what the market bears, with the main goal being that we're accessible to the community, but we're not undercutting any of our private businesses that are doing this, as part of their living. That we didn't want to get into that scenario. So we came up with what we felt like were pretty fair rates. The commission felt like these were pretty fair rates given what's being provided. And we're looking forward to making the space available to the public.
Thanks, Kyle. Do I have a motion to consider the ordinance for one reading only?
So moved.
John Schrader
I'll second.
and Nancy second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Do I have a motion for the ordinance to be read in full or by title only?
Go ahead and make
A motion.
by title only. Paul?
Okay, Paul.
Sorry.
I'll second.
Paul and then Kevin second.
Right.
And all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Could the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-13 by title only?
Ordinance number ordinance number 2020-13. An ordinance establishing fees for rental and associated costs of the Jasper Arts Center and fees for the participation in Jasper Arts Center programs. Repealing ordinance number 2002-43, ordinance number 2005-10, and ordinance number 2010-17.
I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-13.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Dave.
I'll second Phil.
Bill second. Any further discussion on this?
Mayor, I do have, am I still on there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Kyle, I know you've done a tremendous amount of research on this, and our goal, I'm sure, is to rent it out as much as possible. That is correct, right?
Yes.
Okay. The only thing I wish, would you be able to report on this? I know we're way out, I realize it's a year and a half away, but I'd be interested because I think it will, if we can rent that out on a very consistent basis, it'll help offset some of the cost and things down there. And I don't question what you've done, but if we don't rent any of it out, then I would recommend we look at the rates and possibly lower them or something to try to encourage it if it doesn't rent out. Is that
Sure.
fair?
No, absolutely. And one of the things I've said from the outset is, this is something that if the feedback we get, or like you're saying, Kevin, that the response we get is no response, no one's renting it out, then we can always come back and look at these rates again and make adjustment. Nothing's written in stone. The ordinance, we can come back and we can amend the ordinance and we can go from there.
Thanks, Kyle.
Absolutely.
I think it's similar to the Parklands. Remember, they had that per plate fee, and then they took that per plate fee off because it wasn't reasonable anymore to do that. So yeah, I think that's a good idea, Kevin.
Any other discussion? Questions? All right, I'd like to call for a roll vote.
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Laurie,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Okay, ordinance 2020-13 has passed.
Thank you very much, Council. If it would be acceptable, Mayor, I'll excuse myself if there aren't any other questions.
That's fine. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you very
Thanks, Kyle.
much.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay. The next item is regarding the Mayor's Youth Council and setting up a fund. Is that right? Yes.
So,
Yes.
2020-10. And this is setting up a fund so that as we get our donations coming into there, we can also then pass it through for the expenses. And Alan, I don't know if you want to comment on the account. It's fairly similar, I guess, to what we have in with the Parks Department.
Yes. It's made for long term. So as we go forward, it's not a one-time event. It's something we've set a fund up in order to continue this in the future.
we do have an existing donations account, restricted use donations, but I think we put things into that account that are kind of one-time donations. This is a situation where I think the mayor expects to get recurrent donation. So that's when we set up a special account.
Donations and receiving grants, yes.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance, or I guess to read it.
Yeah, we got to go through a one reading only.
Number 2020-10, I'll make a motion to read it with title only.
All right, let's go with one reading only first,
There we
okay?
go.
All second.
Nancy? All second? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I do that, Renee?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Oh,
Any
I'm
opposed?
sorry. Yeah, we need that needs to be unanimous.
Yeah, any opposed? Okay,
I would go ahead and make a motion then, Mayor, to read the ordinance by title only.
okay, I have a motion from Paul to read by title only.
Second.
Second from John,
Correct.
and all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, would the city attorney please read ordinance number 2020-10 by title only?
Ordinance number 2020-10, an ordinance establishing a fund for donations received for the Mayor's Youth Council.
Could I have a motion to pass and adopt ordinance number 2020-10?
I'll make that motion.
There's Nancy.
All second.
I have a second from Dave. All right. Any further discussion on this?
Mayor, I have one question, and maybe Alan can answer this, or Renee. If in the event, for some reason, a future mayor might not choose to have such a council, would these monies, any monies left in that fund, what would happen to those dollars?
That I do not know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know.
Renee?
I think they probably would go into the general fund, but we would, I'm sure we would have to take appropriate action.
Yeah, the council will have to do something to move the money, so.
Right.
Question.
Well, I really like what you've done there, Mayor, so I hope that future mayors will continue such a thing.
Well, let's hope so, but you never know. That's up to them. Any other questions, comments? With that, could I have a roll call vote?
John Schrader,
Aye.
Chad Leakin,
Aye.
Dave Hurst,
Aye.
Paul Lori,
Aye.
Kevin Manley,
Aye.
Nancy Eckerly,
Aye.
Phil Mundy.
Aye.
Ordinance passed. Thank you. And I am excited about that. We got a lot of movement this past week. They and this past 2 weeks, they finalized who their artist is. They've got the design. The park department on the gathering space down there by the farmers market, and they will begin, I think, the 1st of June with the mural painting. And really excited about it. The kids are young adults are excited about it as well. Okay. Other things on here, the executive order. Renee, you want to cover that executive order for me?
Certainly. As you know, over the course of the last several months, there have been many executive orders from the national level or to the state and local levels. The mayor previously passed several executive orders in which he declared a disaster emergency in the city of Jasper. And based on that declaration, we affected suspension of enforcement with respect to utility disconnects and some other utility items that were related to that. Most recently, with the reopening of the Indiana economy, we've had discussions about what we could do locally to help local businesses reopen and to reopen Jasper's economy. We've identified a number of items that we think might be helpful, and some that would include signage provisions that we would either amend or suspend the enforcement of, so as to allow, for example, temporary signage that isn't ordinarily allowed, or differing locations for signage that isn't ordinarily allowed. Other things that we've identified that we could potentially use as ways to assist these businesses would be looking at minimum parking restrictions to allow what we're calling outdoor activities, which would be the food and beverage service or outdoor display of goods, things of that nature that would assist retail businesses in coming back out. Also, maybe some kind of shared lots or expanded spaces to allow those kinds of outdoor activities, sidewalk and non-vehicular right-of-way restrictions that might be lifted or adjusted, as well as vehicular right-of-way restrictions that would be changed. So the the resolution that I would like for the council to consider tonight simply gives the mayor the authority to either adjust or suspend the enforcement of any of our local ordinances that deal with those items that I just mentioned for a short period of time. The mayor had identified up to and including August 31st as a period of time during which we would, again, adjust or suspend the enforcement of certain code provisions or policies. Some of the items that I listed aren't necessarily code provisions, they're just policies that would usually go to the Board of Public Works for approval. It actually, I can share my screen if, get here. You can see right here, letters A through E are the items that I just read off. And then item number 2 deals with the signage provisions. So this resolution, at the beginning, I'll scroll up. The whereas provisions are copied from previous executive orders that identify the history of where we've been. And then toward the end, I've added the governor's May 1st executive order, and that the city of Jasper intends to abide by the governor's directives. And then in an effort to support the reopening of local businesses in a way that will encourage compliance with the governor's reopening recommendations, adjustment or suspension of enforcement of certain municipal code sections is necessary in order to allow flexibility for new business strategies pending the expiration of the public health emergency. So this resolution, again, would authorize the mayor to issue an executive order that would adjust or suspend certain enforcement. And that would be good through August 31st of 2020, unless otherwise ordered by the mayor.
We really did want to just address temporary signage and draw attention to the business community to let people know we are open for business, and try to draw people into those points of business.
Excellent. Renee, I just noticed on number 7, you have 2010 instead of 2020 on there.
Oh, thanks, Nancy.
I think it's excellent, and it gives our businesses maybe just a little bit of a opportunity to do something they're not normally allowed to do in order to promote their business.
I'm all for it, and Mayor, if it helps them, I think we have overreach in a lot of things that we do today. I think if you're wanting to do this to help support them and it works well for it, I'd like to see it be actually changed if it helps our retailers and helps our businesses to conduct their business more. So I'm all for it.
Well, and annually we go through the UDO and make adjustments. So if there's some things that you want to see changed going forward, and if this works out well, then maybe it could be a good testing ground for something like that. Thanks, Kevin. The retail business is struggling, and we need to save as much as we can in the city. They've done a good job of complying with the governor's orders, and now it's our turn to help them, I think, at least during this time, if not going forward forever.
Sure.
Okay. Well, that's the executive order. And with that, I guess, Renee, do I need a motion to approve the resolution 2020-7?
Yes, and then we will send this out via DocuSign for signatures by the council members.
Mayor, I will go ahead and make the motion to approve the executive resolution as submitted, 2020-7.
This is Kevin. I'll second it.
Paul, and a second from Kevin. Any further discussion?
Renee, can I see those items A through E one more time, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I have a
You'll all
motion.
get a copy of that once it's signed.
Yeah. It was still being drafted and up until about 45 minutes before our meeting, so we didn't have a chance to get it to you, but we didn't want to wait to take action on it, so.
Like you went ahead and extended it to August 31st also. It gives the businesses really plenty of time to adapt and do things differently.
Well, originally we thought maybe the end of July, but with the Strassenfest now being canceled for 2020, it's not going to be an issue with signage clutter for the city of Jasper. I think it takes away that risk of people perceiving that. And we can go forward with it till August 31st. I do think the businesses need that opportunity. They need a little time with it. Okay, I have a motion. I have a second. Any further discussion?
As a merchant, I'll say we'll take whatever we can get.
Okay.
Thank you.
If not, do I need a roll vote on this again?
No, because everybody will have to sign it.
Okay. With that, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Just two other bits of information. If you're not familiar, if you haven't heard it, which I'd be real surprised, but the Park and Rec Department, their board voted to shut down the golf operations at Rooksher Course and earlier this month. And so the Rooksher property will be under evaluation. We're going to keep it mowed, maybe every other week or every 3 weeks, depending upon what we can do with, but we'll maintain it until we can figure out what our future use is. There have been several ideas that have been thrown out, and I've got a list right now of 3 different entities or opportunities that we could pursue. So I'd like to get the maybe the redevelopment commission or some other people involved in this on what our long range plan will be on the Rooksher property. But it was an asset. It still is an asset. It just needs to be redeployed so that it is favorable to the city of Jasper, and we'll see what we can do with it. But I wanted to make sure you all aware that if you've got some good ideas, I know I've had one council person reach out to me, and there's a lot of good ideas out there in the community for what could be done with that. So I'd like to hear them.
Mayor, you mentioned that it was that we're going to keep it mowed. I drove by today. Of course, you can't mow where the water's sitting, but the weeds are getting pretty tall out down there.
Yeah. There's been an agreement between the park and the street department to maintain the mow. We'll take a good look at that, John. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. Then the other thing is there is a study. It's a countywide study. We joined the city of Huntingburg and the Du Bois County Commissioners to apply for a bicycle and pedestrian master plan funding. It was a grant that we received. We received a $20,000 grant to go toward this study. It's a matching grant. We're looking at walking and bicycling as an integral part of our community's health, social, economic, and natural resources environment. We're thinking a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that connects the communities of Jasper, Huntingburg, and throughout Du Bois County, even reaching out to Ferdinand, Holland, and Birdseye. Having that plan available then allows us to qualify for grants down the road on, again, pedestrian and bicycle paths. So we met, we had committed to doing this earlier, but with our COVID-19 challenges in the budget, we backed away from it. And then we came back together and we said, this is a good investment. How can we do this without impacting municipalities and the county government budgets so much? So we've taken it upon ourselves to go out and look for private donations to go toward this study. And I'm really pleased that we've had some people step up. It's not fully funded at this point in time, but it's a lot less than what we would have been funding if we'd have continued with our original commitment. So I'm really pleased with that. We're continuing to raise some funds on that. And we're going to run it through the city of Jasper. Alan has agreed to be the gatekeeper, I guess, for the donations and then the payment of the study. But I think it'll help us long range as far as quality of life in Du Bois County. Is it the number one thing on our plate today? No. But if we can get it funded through these private donations matching up with the grant, I think it's a good investment for us. I wanted to make you aware of that. At this point, we've agreed that whatever shortfall there is, if it's a couple $1,000s or $5,000, the city of Jasper would pick up 2/3 of it. The city of Huntingburg would pick up 1/3. And that's just a gentleman's agreement between Mayor Spinner and myself. Okay.
Mayor, how long is that 20,000 grant open until you meet? What's the deadline on that? As far as us meeting our matching goal towards it, the 20 we have to come up with. Does it have a date?
Yeah, so not exactly. We had to commit by May 14th to coming up with the funds.
Okay.
And we did that. Now, here on out, it's going to be a reimbursement program. So we will have the full amount of funds that we'll have to fund, or the full cost of the program we will have to fund on the front end. But then as we submit those funds or those receipts to the grantor, we will get reimbursed. So
Okay.
they don't really care where our funds come from.
Yeah. Okay.
We've made some good headway though on the fundraising, and we narrowed that down. So between the two communities that are going to split what the balance is, it's a very low risk. And our intent is to collect the whole amount from the private.
Sure.
And
That's
it's
our
been
intent.
determined that study would cost $20,000.
It's about
40.
Oh, so it's half. Oh, okay. So the grant will pay for the other half. Okay.
Right.
Got it.
We want to make you aware of that and the logistics, how we're planning on moving forward with that.
Okay.
Originally, it was going to come, we had committed 10,000 out of the edit funds. Okay. And so hopefully we'll have those edit monies for something else.
Great.
That was all I had. Is there anything else that needs to come before the council at this point?
Actually, Mayor, I do have one other thing. I should have brought it when we were talking about your executive order. If you remember back when the mayors passed both the executive orders 2020-2 and 2020-3, the council indicated that they would make them effective through April 23rd and that we would address it again at the April meeting. But I don't think we did that. I don't remember doing that. So what I'd just like is a motion from the council to extend the executive orders dealing with the utility disconnects and related issues to and including such time as the state of Indiana changes the rules relating to those items.
I'll make that motion then.
I'll second.
Motion from Kevin.
Second.
And a second from Nancy. Any further discussion on that? Again, it's aligning with what the governor's direction is.
Right.
Right.
Good common sense and being a good neighbor.
All right, with that, Renee, do we need a roll call or?
No, I think you can just do it by voice vote.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you all.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would have one other thing, Mayor, and again, just quickly, if anybody is interested, I believe that Brookstone 7 is on our agenda coming up for our June 3rd meeting, where we would see the primary plat approval. So if any of you have any concerns, or if any of your constituents call you and let you know, I'm sure we'll be Zooming again by then. I hope not, but I think we'll probably have another Zoom meeting for that meeting scheduled in there. But that would be June the 3rd at the Plan Commission meeting is, I believe, when we'll see that. Correct, Renee?
That's correct. And to your comment about Zoom meetings, we actually did just have a conversation this afternoon. So either tomorrow or the next day, we'll be looking at the June meeting schedule and trying to decide how we go forward, at least for June, maybe June and July, with respect to whether meetings are in person and what kind of technology we'll have available for those who still don't feel comfortable coming out.
And it may be a hybrid approach as well. So
Right.
We may look at using the Board of Public Works as a test for that.
It may be the Plan Commission.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. With that, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion. This is Kevin.
I have a motion from Kevin to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. This is Dave.
Second from Dave. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, have a good evening. Thank you. We
Everyone.
covered a lot of area tonight. So
Have a nice holiday weekend.